We continue on with our 2022 positional reviews for the Minnesota Vikings. Today, for you guys, we have tight ends. We'll break down that position right after this. The Minnesota Vikings 2022 tight end position was kind of a weird one. I mean, as it started out, we were hoping for big things from Herb coming off his meniscus injury last year. We brought in Johnny Munt, who ended up being, I mean, not consistent, but more effective than I thought he would be.
Yeah.
But obviously, the biggest thing that happened with this season was one of the best moves Kwesi's made since he has been here, and that was the midseason TJ Hockenson trade. We'll get into some stats in a bit here, but I mean, that just at its surface, that was a huge trade for this team because he became a favorite target for Kirk Cousins.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, and that really changed the outlook of this tight end position for the Minnesota Vikings. Great trade, and he's only 25 years old. So it was one of the best moves that Kwesi made this season. I mean, he's only had one season, but one of the best moves he made this season.
It's one of the best moves. It might be his best move he made, other than helping. I don't know how much he has to do with hiring KOC. A lot. Do you think it's a lot?
Oh yeah,
probably quite a bit.
Yeah.
Other than hiring KOC, I think it was the next best move Kwesi made.
It was his best trade with the Lions.
Easily, by far his best trade with the Lions, and not even close. And we came into the season really hyped up about Irv Smith. After he's coming back from injury the year before in training camp, he was getting all that hype. Earlier on, before he got injured this year, we just didn't see the consistency that we were hoping from. He had some big drops. I know he did have a couple of touchdowns, but other than that, it just wasn't what we were hoping. And that trade with the Hawkins, that was a huge surprise for, I think, anybody. I don't think anybody was expecting that, especially obviously with the Lions. But we were talking about what's Miami's
Mike Gesicki.
Mike Gesicki. Like, that was what we were kind of talking about. And we made our list of who we wanted. We were talking about wide receivers. I think we had Mike Gesicki like number 5 on that list potentially. And Hockenson was just, I mean, we should have known, like, all right, maybe we'll trade with the Lions because we already did it. But nobody was expecting that, especially a guy who was a former top 10 pick, and he's only 25 and young, and we can, hopefully we re-sign him to a decent contract.
Hope so.
He's instantly became one of Kirk Cousins' favorite targets with like 12 catches in the first game or 9 catches in the first game, something crazy like that.
Sure.
So man, it was a big trade, and
definitely.
it's going to be huge for us in the future too, man. Like, now we just got that spot taken care of.
Yeah. I mean, he could command a pretty hefty salary, but I'd say pay him, because just what he did to this team, the kickstart he gave to this team is absolutely ginormous.
You don't see those kind of tight ends often. There's
there's
Kelsey, George Kittle, Mark Andrews.
Right. I mean, he's easily I think he's in that second tier, just because Travis Kelsey is almost in a tier of his own.
Yeah.
And Mark Andrews is up there as well when he's got a healthy team and everything around him. But
right.
I think Hockenson is definitely if he's not bottom of the first tier, he's definitely at the top of the second tier.
Yeah, and he's 25.
Yeah.
So he's top 10 pick. So I mean, he has a lot of potential still. I don't think we've seen his ceiling yet. He could obviously Kelsey's one of the greatest tight ends ever. Arguably, some people would arguably say number 1. So hard to compare him to him, but Hockenson could be that difference making type tight end that you see in the George Kittles and
definitely
Darren Waller other than last year, but.
And his effect is only showed by his stats, which I say we'll jump.
Yeah, let's dive in and do our grades of our tight ends. We did 3 tight ends: Hockenson, Irv Smith, and we had to put Munt in there. Sure. He was just a first down machine. One play a game, 1 first down a game type of guy,
So obviously TJ Hockenson, we mentioned the trade. So with the Lions received our 2023 second round pick and a 2024 third round pick. We got TJ Hockenson as well as a 2023 fourth round pick and a conditional 2024 fourth round pick. And I mean, you look at that 100% win for the Minnesota Vikings. The entire season with the Lions and the Vikings, Hockenson, 86 receptions, 914 yards, both second in the league among tight ends, 6 touchdowns and a 70.2 PFF grade. Jamie, I know you had his stats just for the Vikings.
Yeah. So with just the Vikings, he had 60 receptions, which is a ton, obviously, in comparison with the Lions, 519 yards and 3 touchdowns. So half of his touchdowns came with us, which 2 of them came in one game. So we didn't really see a ton of him in the end zone, but I we definitely attempted to, and I see that going up dramatically next year as far as that goes. But the receptions are crazy. 60 of the 86 receptions all came into the with the Vikings.
Yeah.
But you're talking about, like, we're talking about Travis Kelce and all those guys, second in receptions for all tight ends, second in yards for all tight ends. And I think he was sixth for touchdowns, something like that. Nothing too crazy, obviously.
Right.
I wish I could have seen his PFF grade since he became a Viking. That would have been interesting.
For sure.
But yeah, man.
But yeah, obviously, as you
big.
mentioned, came in immediate impact. That first game he played for us against Washington, 9 catches, 70 yards. You mentioned the 2 touchdown game against the Giants, 13 catches, a Minnesota Vikings tight end reception record, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns. One of them was absolutely fantastic. The catch he kind of where Kirk just gave him a chance to go up and get it. I mean, there's not much more you can say. Like, coming in mid-season, just having that effect right away and becoming basically the second receiving option on this team. Yeah, TJ Hockenson was an absolute animal, absolute monster. Great trade. Love to see him come in. Any other thoughts before we grade him? The greatest season.
Just, man, like, just everything you said. And if we can just get them guys another wide receiver, hopefully another wide receiver, high-end wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1, whatever, across from JJ and him, I just don't know what you do with this. Kirk Cousins should be able to just throw it up wherever he wants.
Yeah.
It does, as long as it's past the first down, and someone should come down with it.
Oh god. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm just gonna give TJ Hockenson an A-. I would have given him a straight up A, but he did have some dropping issues in some certain games, namely Green Bay. But man, overall though, just what he did for this team this year, A- season, which is fantastic. And I think he's 25. This guy has a chance to be one of the top tight ends in the league in a few years because Kelsey's getting up there. He's going to retire.
He's already one of the top ones, but he has a chance to be the top one, depending on how long Kelsey lasts.
For sure. So, yeah. What are your thoughts?
I got to give him an A. He did have some drops, but at the end of the day, like, he did switch to the Vikings mid-season. He had to change I don't know, all the plays, learn the plays, like all the stuff it takes to go to a new team in mid-season. And you couldn't have asked him to come in and, become the second guy after Justin Jefferson in the passing game right out the gate. So I think that's really hard, and to see him do that was really impressive. That's why I think we see big things from him next year. So I'll give him an A.
Yeah, awesome. Moving on to our second guy, Irv Smith Jr. In 8 games, 25 catches, 182 yards, 2 touchdowns, 56.6 PFF grade. Again, we all had high hopes for Irv. A lot of people after the injury last year kind of gave up on him, but I didn't. I was really hoping for some big things from him, and
same.
Again, got hurt. We just didn't get to see it. Obviously, in Philadelphia, had the huge drop that really could have turned that game around. Would have been a touchdown. If that's TJ Hockenson, he scores. Another thing with TJ Hockenson, man, the run after the catch, which we didn't talk about, was fantastic. Been a while since we've seen a tight end be able to do that for this team. Kyle Rudolph. Love Kyle Rudolph, but he was definitely a catch and fall over type of guy. But I don't know. And I think, Irv, obviously he did have a touchdown in the playoff game, but I think we've seen the last of Irv Smith in a Vikings uniform. Yeah. I don't know, not much more to say than that.
Yeah. So, I guess for me, obviously, it's pretty much the same thing. We were expecting more. We didn't see it right out the gate. He got hurt again. Though I do want to say, like, I do think I think Irv is talented, and I'm not convinced he's just not going to be a good pro. So my question for you is, like, is there any chance you bring him back?
No.
I think I might disagree with that. I think, obviously,
someone will pay him based off potential.
If that's the case, I wouldn't do that. But if it was like a couple mil, if it was $2 million a year, $2 million a year, I can't imagine vet minimum. But if it was $2 million a year, I think I'd give him that chance, because if he becomes, the thing about him is his best asset is with the ball in the hand, the ball in his hands. We didn't get to see that a lot last year. We did get to see a little bit more of that when he was with Kyle Rudolph before. And that's like some high potential stuff. So, if he was able to come in and be that tight end number 2, and we were able to see that skill out of him, I still think there could be some potential. If the price is right, I think personally that I would probably give him one more chance at a lower salary.
Yeah. And who knows, maybe he would agree to that. Maybe like a 1-year prove it type deal. But because working alongside JJ and TJ, like there is a spot for him, but I personally think he moves on. Grade wise, I think a D is fair. It just wasn't.
I think a D is fair as well. I think a D is fair as well.
Yeah, hate to say
That's
it. I
low.
mean,
That's
again, love
low.
Irv, love the attitude.
Yeah.
I think he does have a future in this league, but we'll see. Moving on to our final tight end, Johnny Munt. In 17 games, 19 receptions, 140 yards, 1 touchdown, 51.2 PFF grade. Like you said, he was a first. I mean, you should have looked up how many first downs he had.
Yeah, I'm
That
gonna
had to have been
actually
quite
do
a
that
few.
real quick. I don't know if I
First
can
down machine.
see that. But...
They got him in on some tight end screens. Kirk did like throwing to him. He's a solid, and this is it. I don't know. This is the type of tight end you need as a second tight end, someone you can bring in who can catch the ball, who has some run after catch ability. But obviously he's not going to get a ton of snaps, and with where he's at in his career to make some money and play in the NFL and be a second tight end, I think he's fine with that. So, again, not a huge season from Johnny Munt, but when we said we signed him, we're like, oh, what's really the point? But I don't know. It's solid season.
Yeah, I think he had a solid season. Obviously, I mean, I wouldn't like tight end 2, like a legit tight end 2. I wouldn't be screaming that at the top of my lungs or
You don't
anything.
really see a lot of like legit tight end 2s in the
Yeah, I mean,
league, but
yeah, not a lot. Like you could even say like Isaiah Likely this year for Baltimore. Obviously, we've seen probably
Blake
some
Bell
glimpses of him
for Washington or for Kansas
for
City gets in there
Kansas City.
sometimes, but obviously with Travis Kelce, not a lot.
Yeah, there's more like for him. He was kind of like dump the ball off and then he'd like get himself a first down or something like that. So it wasn't crazy. Like Irv Smith, I think has that potential to be more of that. But a solid season. I mean, the big thing, like you look at his PFF grade, you look at his stats, nothing crazy. But when you watched him, you saw, I can't find the first down thing, but you saw every time he got the ball, it would be like, 3rd and 8, and all of a sudden he'd get a first down. And those plays were big. So I'll give him a C.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing.
Yeah, I'm feeling a C for him. Obviously, it's nothing crazy. Look at his stats. He didn't get tons of playing time. You can't give him a B or an A.
Right.
But when he did get the ball, he got first downs, man. And if you could have an entire career if you can just do that consistently.
Yeah, definitely. So, but yeah, I mean, obviously it was a season where the tight end position was saved by the trade for TJ Hockenson, and now the future of the tight ends for Minnesota Vikings look bright in our opinion. But we want to know your guys' opinions. Drop your thoughts on the Minnesota Vikings tight ends down in the comments. Give us your grades on them, and we'll see you guys next time on the GG Sports Podcast.
Skol Vikes.